Today I will be talking about control of emotions and what cost we pay for trying to avoid them rather than feeling them. And towards the end of this video, I will be giving you a few questions that you can ask yourself to see what price you pay for avoiding your uncomfortable emotions. And this is my first video from a new series where I will be talking about emotional avoidance, how to overcome that, and how to achieve a better psychological flexibility. We find different ways of how we can avoid feeling what is difficult. So, for instance, if we feel anxious on public transport, maybe we will try to take a walk. If we feel uncomfortable when we are around people, then maybe we're going to look for a job that allows us to work remotely. When we live with the fear of being rejected, then we might avoid going out with people and engaging in deeper relationships with them. Some of us, on the other hand, might be using alcohol to avoid feeling what's uncomfortable. Someone else, on the other hand, might working really long hours to avoid going back home, where maybe they will have to face certain issues that they are experiencing in a romantic relationship. And many of us also uses food to distract ourselves from what is really painful and difficult. So these are only a very few examples of different behaviors of what we do when we want to get rid of certain emotions, when we don't want to feel certain things which make us uncomfortable. And actually, from time to time, we all engage with those behaviors. So occasionally, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel really anxious, and maybe you ask to work from home, that potentially could be even considered as a self-care, because when you work from home, maybe for 1 or 2 days, maybe even 3 days, you are able to recover from whatever is happening, whatever is bothering you, so that the next week you can go back and actually work from the office. When you give yourself a break from certain social interactions, from engaging with certain people, again, that could make you feel more relaxed and can be potentially something positive in long term. However, when you're requesting working from home, because this is linked to your social anxiety, and then as a result of that you feel defeated, you feel sad, depressed, lonely, this is an indication that your avoidance techniques are actually working against you. Let's have a look at another example. So let's say you had really bad night's sleep, and then you got up and you start feeling really anxious, and then you've decided that, you know what, I'm not gonna take public transport, because if I'm gonna be around people, I'm gonna feel even more worried and anxious. So you're choosing to go to work by walk. And then most likely as a result of that, you're gonna be able to relax and feel better. We could even say that this is a good avoidance. But when your fear of being on public transport prevents you from actually having certain jobs, because you are only limited to jobs that allow you to work from home, when your fear of being on public transport limits you from maybe traveling and seeing your family, that is again an indication that this attempt to block what you're feeling in this way is actually working against you. Or if sometimes you indulge in good food, in snacks, maybe in chocolates, in cakes, because you had a stressful day at work, again, it is something that we all occasionally do, and that's okay. But when you start feeling bad about your weight, and then as a result of that, you're eating even more, and then because of this, you have to deal with obesity and maybe with eating disorder, this is an indication that your avoiding strategies, they work actually against you. One example when avoiding and not accepting emotions cannot never work, it is in times when we grieve. So here I'm talking not only about the grief that we experience when we lose someone because they died, but we also can experience grief as a result of breakup of a relationship, whether it is a romantic or family relationship. We can also experience grief after losing a job, or even after undergoing certain major accident where maybe our independence has been limited, maybe we need to change our job. So it might be that at this point in our life we might be actually undergoing these different changes, where as a result of that we're dealing with multiple losses. And grief is actually one of those emotional responses that once we accept it, with time it will actually settle down itself. However, many of us actually struggles with accepting grief and losses. And then as a result of that, we end up with addictions, with workaholism, and being in multiple relationships without any healthy boundaries. Another issue with controlling emotions or trying to avoid feeling what's uncomfortable is that as a result of those different behaviors, we might actually stop doing things that we enjoy. So maybe going out with friends and family, or maybe stop doing certain hobbies. When we avoid difficult emotions using drugs, alcohol, or food, we damaging not only our emotional health but also our physical health. We all love to feel in control of our emotions and all the practical aspects that are going on in our life. However, sometimes it might be only the illusion that we are in control that gives us this satisfaction. In summary, we can say that avoiding emotions or attempt to control them requires a lot of time and energy from us. It also requires a lot of effort in general, right? But then also long term doesn't bring that desirable relief. As a result of chronic avoidance, we can also start self-blaming for maybe not being strong enough, for not being able to forget certain things, for not being able to control well enough our emotions. Avoiding emotions can decrease quality of our life, stopping us from progressing in our professional and also personal life. Then as a result of this, we start feeling even more negative emotions and thoughts, locking ourselves in a vicious cycle of avoidance. Unfortunately, avoiding negative thoughts, unwanted emotions, or memories is a major cause of depression, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, addictions. So now I would like you to grab pen and paper and write down one emotion that you avoid to feel on daily basis. Now the next step, it is to write down a list of all the things that you do to avoid feeling that emotion. So is it drinking, using alcohol? Is it getting into romantic relationships where there's no healthy boundaries? Maybe working excessively, maybe binge eating, binge watching movies, or maybe scrolling on your phone. So now we can think about your behaviors in a systemic way. Means on one side you can write down all the benefits that you're gaining from actually avoiding feeling that emotion, and on the other side of the paper you can write down all the disadvantages of actually engaging in this avoiding behavior. And just to remind you that we all use avoidance because sometimes we don't want to feel certain things, and that's all right. But when your avoidance is actually lowering quality of your life, that's when it becomes problematic. I hope that now you can see clearly what's the problematic behavior here, and this is actually a first step that you need to take if you want to make a positive change later. And another point I wanted to mention here, because it might not always be as obvious, is that something as small as not being able to say no to your friends could be also an avoidance of fear of being rejected. So in a way, you're socializing, you're going out with your friends, you're taking part in different hobbies, but very often actually you feel drained, you feel frustrated, you feel like your boundaries are being crossed. But this is linked to the fact that you actually struggle to say no to your friends, to avoid potential rejection and the fear that goes with it, and all these negative thoughts that they go with it. You keep meeting expectations on your friends. And then as a result of that, the joy of actually spending time with your friends is being taken away from you. Now that you have better understanding of your avoiding strategies, what are their costs and benefits, that means that you have a better self-awareness, and this is actually a first step needed in order for you to make any change. And if you are interested in learning more about self-awareness, I have actually one whole video where I talk only about how you can become more self-aware. From now on, whenever you're going to recognize your avoiding behavior, you can take a note of that and take a note of what you did, what you didn't do, what maybe you try to avoid feeling, and what thoughts you had at the time. And with time, the more you're gonna do this, you're gonna start recognizing patterns in your behavior, and that will be indication that your self-awareness actually increases. This will be it for today, but I'm gonna see you next week when I'm gonna be talking about different strategies that you can apply in order for you to live a more fulfilled life where you don't have to run away from your difficult emotions. And if you enjoyed this video, then please like it, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you next week then. Bye bye.